Welcome back in, builders. This week we're taking a look at Middle-Age Asphodel, Carrion Woods, aka bigger, meaner, tougher Pangaea, a nation that is very good in the AI hands because it is a free spawn nation and they do rather well with that, and has a lot of distinct strengths and a few distinct weaknesses. But overall, I think people will agree that it is a relatively powerful nation. It's undergone some pretty decent changes in DOM 6 compared to previous iterations, and even has got some buffs and some nerfs since the launch of DOM 6. So something that's kind of been in active balance. Let's check them out and see what they got going on. Asphodel was once part of Pangaea, a woodland nation inhabited by wild beings connected with nature. Half-men, such as satyrs, centaurs, and minotaurs, served the lords of the sacred groves deep in the forest. In ancient times, the woods covered much of the world, but that has changed. Man is no longer beast, and animal is no longer wild. The world of the wild is disappearing. In response to the destruction of the wild forest, a dark and hungry god has arisen. The Pangaea of the sacred groves could not prevent the destruction of the wilderness, and a few of them have revolted and struck back with dark fury upon the civilized world. The panic apostates and their followers have been touched by the dark god, and their hides are covered as black as the mood of the vengeful forest. But victory comes at a price. Half-men, as well as civilized men, succumb to the curse of the Carrion Woods. Asphodel is slowly turning into a cursed forest realm haunted by living carrion. This Pangaea has had enough. For national features, for races, we have forest beings and reanimated carrion beings, which include stealthy troops, troops that will heal battle afflictions, and undead carrion beasts. For military, we have satyr and minotaur infantry, centaur warriors and archers, harpies, hordes of mannequins, and carrion beasts. For magic, we are very strong in nature and death, and we have a little bit of glamour, a little bit of earth and water. Our priests are average. We can recruit level 2s. However, we have undead priests that A, can reanimate carrion beings, but B, we can actually get holy 3s via a summoning spell, which is very strong. Our dominion reanimates the undead buried as mannequins. Carrion beasts are everywhere, but we get more of them in forests. Temples and a growth scale increase reanimation rates. Our magic scale increases the chance of getting better reanimations. Our dominion kills pop. We are a true pop kill nation. Even if you go up to growth 5, we will still be killing off population pretty alarmingly quickly. Not quite MA Ermor, but still. I believe our pop kill is 5%, or Ermor, I believe, is it 10? Pretty ridiculous. For scales and blesses, we get a growth limit of +2 and a magic limit of +1. Both of those, as mentioned above, are very important scales for us. For buildings, we have very primitive forts, which are also 50% more expensive, aka very, very pricey and complete garbage. Our temples only cost 300 in forests, our temples produce a nature gem, and our labs only cost 300 in forests. I will mention here, we have a spell that allows us to summon in bramble forts, essentially, which are as good or maybe even a little better than the primitive forts. So ideally, we would like to get things forested and then use our spell to be able to do that. I'd rather spend some gems than 1,500 gold for an absolute garbage fort. Just keep that in mind. It's absolute garbage. For sites, we have one site. We have the Carrion Grove. This increases growth in this province by a maximum of 4, meaning that we should end up with a growth scale of 5 in our capital, as long as we take something reasonable. It produces 6 nature gems and a death gem, and allows us to recruit 2 of our living sacreds, the Black Centaur and the Black Minotaur. Units and sacreds. We have a very large lineup in Asphodel, and this is a place where the Nations Overview mod, the only mod I generally run in Dominion 6, is very helpful because we're going to be able to see a lot of the free spawn / summon things down here that like triple this roster. So buckle up. We're going to go a little quick here. These are mostly the same as what you will see in Pangaea. So if you want a much more detailed analysis, go ahead and take a look at that. We have harpies. These can be recruited in all forests in addition to our forts. These are stealthy flyers that have recuperation and forest survival. Nice for being able to, say, hold an attack rear, get things off of script, maybe kill some mages. Even though their attack is not particularly good, they do have 2 of them, and they're only size 3, so you can still have 3 per square. A little deadlier than they may look, but they will not hold up against real troops. We have the Satyr Sneak, can also be recorded in forests. This guy produces turmoil, or causes unrest, I should say. They're undisciplined, they have recuperation, force survival, and stealth. They are very cheap, and they are not particularly great. They have a bronze spear, which is length 3, attack 10, and some furs. Not stupendous, especially considering they're both undisciplined and they cause extra unrest. We have satyrs, also can be recruited in forests. This guy is 946, so ever so slightly more expensive. We're paying for a javelin on him. If I was going to get one between these first 2, it would be this guy because of the javelins. That is dependent on what you're fighting and so forth, but I'd rather have the javelin than not, and it's only 1 resource. I would probably go that route. For our last satyr, we have the Satyr Warrior. This guy is better. He is not undisciplined. He maintains his force survival and recuperation. He has a bronze spear and a shield, along with some furs. This guy would be fine. Do you want to use him? Probably not. Should note, 10 morale on him, 9 and 9 on the previous 2, so they are relatively cowardly. We also do not have the quite a bit better Reveler Satyr that Pangaea enjoys, which also has a hoof attack. We quite miss that here. Moving up into centaurs, we have the Centaur, can also be recruited in forests. This is a longbow centaur, which is essentially a bow cavalry unit, I suppose. Interesting in that he has a longbow, which is okay. He's really good with it. 12 attack, aka precision, on a longbow is pretty rare. That's rather nice. He also has 2 melee attacks with a hoof and a dagger. Although they're length 0, better than nothing. Like everybody else we have recuperation, force survival, and we also have stealth. Our morale is a little higher. Our magic resist is good. Our HP is okay. I like these guys quite a decent amount. If you want to do some archery, these guys can definitely do it. We do have decent access to nature, so you could do like envenom arrows if you were so inclined. We have the Centauride. This can also be recruited in forests. This is the female equivalent of the centaur. She is wielding a short bow. Her claim to fame is she's even better of a shot, but it being a short bow limits its use. I think the main use here would be fire and keep distance for some very accurate fire, or maybe some archery duels if you just want something kind of cheap. But 25 gold, 12 recruitment points, and even for him, 25 and 12. You're probably not going to want to do archery duels with these type of troops. Next up, we have the Centauride Warrior, wielding a bronze spear, a hoof, and has a javelin. Just like everyone, she has recuperation and force survival, also has stealth. 30 gold, 11 resources, 17 recruitment points is pretty pricey. She does have some armor in a centaur barding and a shield. However, she will still not mess up her hair. Even the evil emo centaurs refuse, and so no helmet, which is a pretty decent weakness. Next, we have the Centaur Warrior. Very similar, except for he was able to put on a leather cap, which helps quite a bit. These guys are actually decent. They have a bronze lance instead of a bronze spear that the Centauride Warrior had. The lance gives you that nice hefty lance hit. In addition, they go berserk, which is very, very nice. We have enough HP that we will probably not die to it one single hit, so you'll probably berserk, which will stack in nicely with your protection, up your attack and damage some. Pretty good little troop here, actually. Next, we have a Minotaur, can also be recruited in all forests. Minotaurs are interesting in that they are tramplers that go berserk. They're also relatively cheap. Gold, yeah, that's a little pricey, but 6 resources, 6 recruitment, and only 40 gold. Not the worst in the world. This first chassis is undisciplined, so that's a little hard to use, but in a pinch or just running them straight into the doors of a fort, these guys could do some work. Next up, we have the Minotaur Warrior. These guys are not undisciplined, and they have a slightly, we go from furs to leather hauberks, so a little bit more protection. That really nice +5 Berserk, again, stacks in really well with high morale, good magic resist, good HP, good strength, okay combat speed, a nice hefty bronze battle axe for 29 slashing damage if they can't trample something. This is a pretty decent troop that I feel like a lot of people probably underestimate because we get caught up in all the carrion stuff that we can do, but still a pretty decent troop for the right situation. Next up, we have 2 Sacreds. We have the Black Centaur, which is cap only. This is the same as the EA version, and they are still just as good. We are Sacred, Stealthy, Berserker, Force Survival, Recuperation. We use a Bronze Lance, and we also have a Hoof Attack, and we have some Javelins. We wear Centaur Barding, have a shield, and a leather cap. Very, very nice troop here. 55 gold, 12 resources, 29 recruitment points. Doesn't sound too bad, but do note I generally have had problems with recruitment points because we are a pop kill nation. At some point, it gets rather difficult to keep recruiting these. So get them while you can. They're just as good as they were before. That beautiful Berserk really helping them out. You could go with Repel Blesses. You could go with some Protection Blesses, Blood Surge, Enchanted Blood, Undying, all kinds of things here that would be pretty good. Do note we have some undead free spawn or summoned via ritual sacreds, so just be aware of what you take for your blessing. You're kind of going to want it to do multiple things. Finally, for our recruitables, we have the Black Minotaur, also a cap-only sacred. This guy is 70 gold, 6 resources, 20 recruitment points. He is essentially a normal Minotaur, but he is sacred. He is still wearing that same battle axe, 30 slashing damage on him, and he wears furs. These are probably not that great compared to the Centaurs with being able to flank a little more effectively. These guys also can get themselves in trouble via trampling and getting surrounded and killed. So I'm not too in love with these guys. I think they're usable if you just really like the idea or the right situation comes up. Like I need to chop down a monolith, 30 slashing damage. That puts you in the realm of being able to at least deal damage to it. Could be useful there. We are so not done though. We have summons and free spawn. We'll go through our free spawn. We have a lot. First, starting up here, this is actually a commander, not a unit, but I'll cover him since he's in here. This is our generic commander that we can get. Do note, in order to get free spawn, it needs to be inside of your dominion, and you get more and better if you have a temple, if it's a forest, if you have more candles, if you have more growth, and you get better chassis if you have magic. So I'm not 100% confident to give the formula here. I could only find where people had been speculating on what had changed from 5. But generally speaking, more candles, more growth, more that you get, more growth and more magic scales seems to increase the quality. That may not be 100% correct, so take that with a grain of bone meal here. That all being said, this is a perfectly usable commander. We're going to have a lot of the same traits on all of our carrion units. We are poor amphibian, we're piercing resistant, cold resistant, poison resistant, we're undead, we're a magic being, we're inanimate, we don't eat, we have forest survival, we have recuperation, and we have spirit sight. A lot of traits here. Do note that being undead and a magic being and inanimate opens us up to a lot of specialized spells that are very potent. Celestial Opposition, I think Shatter may work on these guys because they're technically inanimate. All the anti-undead stuff. A lot of brutal counters here, so just be aware of that. Looking at what he has, we have Sleep Vines on a lot of our units. These are pretty interesting. They're length 3, usually relatively low attack, and they hit you for fatigue damage, which is magic resistance negates. So do note that. Yeah, but 33 fatigue damage is ridiculous. This is also still damage, So the newly buffed vampiric weapons are quite interesting on these units because A, you just have a lot of attacks. Do note we have 3 attacks with this weapon. If all 3 hit, not only would you do upwards of 99 fatigue damage, you also would proc vampiric weapons 3 times. At time of recording, vampiric weapons has been buffed semi-recently, where even if you kill a unit, you still get a little bit of the heal and fatigue reduction. So this is a nation I think is very interesting for vampiric weapons. We'll see if we can make it work. Beyond that, he has a claw and a hoof attack. That's kind of whatever. Overall, 50 leadership, 10 magic leadership, and importantly, 100 undead leadership. It means we can move around lots and lots of our free spawn. We can put them into some formations. They are pretty nice. Going back down to units now, we have various different beasts. Remember, we always can get these in forests, and magic scales get us better ones. I'm not going to go too in-depth on most of these. We're just going to kind of browse through them. We have a wolf, good note for good combat speed, otherwise relatively low stats. He has a bite and a sleep vine. We have the boar, again, sleep vine and bite. Also on these guys, they have mindless. Remember, if you're mindless, you cannot be targeted by things like mind burn. One of the big weaknesses of Asphodel is having mind burn just snipe out your leader and then everybody else crumbles. So if you're up against anyone who could possibly mind burn or soul slay, make sure you bring stuff that can soak that up for your leadership. That can be pretty devastating. We have the horse, 20 combat speed. These guys are kind of nice. I like to put them in hold and attack rear, and they'll just run to the back and start wailing away on mages or leaders. Their attacks are absolutely terrible, but they're relatively fast. They're a good distraction. It's something. We have a bear, pretty beefy with 68 HP and a pretty damaging claw that he's very unlikely to hit with. That's going to be a theme for a lot of these. We have the carrion beast, a bite and a claw and a sleep vine, and he's actually pretty good attack. That's with some harassment penalty could actually maybe land some hits. Something to note there. We have the behemoth. This is like an elephant carrion. Size 9 trampler. Pretty darn spooky there. Lots of attacks if he, for some reason, cannot trample. I wish we could get more of these. They would be pretty decent. I think in the game behind us here, I've gotten maybe 5 in over 2 years. So maybe I'm just unlucky. Maybe we need some more magic scales. We have the Minotaur Mannequin. Again, pretty decent. Good HP, good strength, low combat speed, good magic resistance, good morale because we have the mindless. Do note on all these guys, magic 8 down here at the bottom, 8 because these are animals or from animals. So banishes are going to be really effective against you. As we move up here, some of these are a little bit better, aka 13 magic resistance is pretty respectable. We have the Sagittarian Carcass. This is one of our free spawn sacreds. We have sleep vines, we have a vine whip, we have a hoof attack, and we have a carrion bow. The carrion bow hits people with carrion seeds. Essentially, this is a debuff that will give you a disease, and if you die at some point, you turn into a mannequin. So even if you fail against an army, maybe you can kind of disease them out. It is magic resistance negates. The bow itself also has entangle on it. Pretty decent. They're also okay melee combatants, depending on what your bless is. So a very nice unit. You will really, really like it when you get these. I'm pretty sure that you need to have temples in order for these to spawn, and even better if it's a temple forest. In the game behind us here, I don't think I ever once had one of these spawn in a non-forest. Ditto for everything up here. The only stuff I was getting in non-forest were commanders and some of these low stuff right here. Speaking of, next up we have the mannequin. This is essentially a vine undead. This is the base chassis. We have sleep vines and a claw that we're not good at either one of those. We do, however, have good magic resist. That will definitely help when we're getting banished. We have the Mandragora. These are quite nice because even more magic resistance, and we have even more sleep vines and claws at a good attack value. Remember, these each have 3 attacks. So this guy has 7 attacks. Pretty nice. Good for putting people to sleep. Remember, when you go to sleep, your defense essentially drops to 0. And then all of a sudden, all those guys who have 6 attack can now hit you. Now, you will wake up, but what else are they going to hit you with? A bunch of sleep vines. So you're going to pass out after not very long once you start getting hit. Next up, we have the Satyr Mannequin. Again, just a sleep vine claw attack. They're kind of whatever, good magic resist. We have the Harpy Mannequin. Again, ditto. It's too bad they can't still fly. That'd be ridiculous. Just a bunch of sleep vines here. Finally, we have the Carrion Fury, a Sacred Minotaur Undead. Quite nice. He has a Gore attack. He has a Skull Club, which gives Dark Slumber, an armor negating fatigue attack. Quite nice. It reminds me of the EA Machaca Sacreds. Pretty good. It's a magic attack. It's two-handed. It's a length 2. Also has the Sleep Vines, so that's going to give you a total of 4 attacks that can do fatigue, and he still has a Gore. These guys are amazing. Again, you would really like to get more of them. I'm pretty sure they require a temple at the bare minimum, and they may require woods too. That is all of our free spawn. Quite a list, as you can see. Heroes, Commanders, and Prophet. As mentioned before, I just want to call out the Carrion Commander here as a basic free spawn commander. Much appreciated. They also seem to spawn pretty decently. For heroes, we have 2. We have the Eton Mandragora. This is an amazing chassis. Give him some gear. He can have 2 weapons and a shield and 2 helmets. So depending on what your bless is, he also has growth power. And you're probably looking at growth at least 3 or 4 or maybe even 5. So these stats are they can go quite a lot higher from where they start. Tons of attacks here. And remember, we can dual wield, and he's even ambidextrous 3. So give him maybe 2 length 3 spears, or maybe 1 length 3 spear for some repelling, an AoE weapon, and a shield, or maybe even 2 shields. You can make a ridiculous combatant out of this guy. Quite cool, quite fun. You're going to be really sad if he dies. Next, we have the Apostatic Warrior. He's a very mad assassin Pan. He has Death, Nature 2, Priest level 1. He is sacred. He goes berserk. He's stealthy. He's an assassin with ambidextrous 4. He has an enchanted spear and a club, so he can repel. Very interesting. If you do give him a shield, note you will lose one of the weapons. I believe he loses the Skull Club. Don't quote me on that. Interesting. It gives us an assassin, if nothing else, which is nice to have. However, you only have one of them, so who knows how long he's actually going to be able to last. I think I'm going to do the summons next. Yeah, let's do the summons next. So we'll look at the spells that bring these in. However, we start the game with them, and they're very doable. All of this can be done natively. First up, we have the Carrion Centaur, a priest level 1, sacred, our standard stats across the board. Good HP, okay strength, has multiple attacks. He has 150 undead leadership, 50 magic leadership, 50 normal leadership. A quite nice leader, although be aware he can be banished or other bad things. He's a candidate for maybe a bow. He does have good combat speed. I guess his precision is pretty garbage. I think you could actually, depending on your bless, gear this out as a light thug. You have so many free attacks here. You could give him a length 3 weapon and a shield and some armor, and you could, I think, rumble it up pretty well, actually. Again, just depends on what your bless is. And we also have some easy to cast spells that we can give him, like regeneration and whatnot. So very interesting chassis, good leader, relatively cheap. Also remember, as undead, we can summon in more undead with our priests, and he can start that process. Next, we have the Carrion Lady. Again, a summonable leader. She comes in with Nature 1, Priest level 2, a random of Death or Glamour. A little bit of research, not great, although it is upkeep free, which is amazing. Has our standard suite of abilities, including extra supply bonus if you are lugging around living troops as the pop kill does its thing. That could be pretty handy. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Assassin. That would be so nice. Obviously, you're not going to get seduced here, but yeah, they're perfectly fine. I tend to not get these. They're more expensive than a Centaur, and they're not as good as a Carrion Lord, so they're kind of in an awkward spot. Carrion Lords are amazing. These guys are Death 2, Growth 3, priest level 3, and they get a random of water, earth, death, or nature. So we could get a death 3 or a nature 4 natively at a 25% chance. Having priest level 3 means we can also make him profit for priest level 4, and we have a very nice spell there that this would be the easiest way to get that. They come in with native fear, otherwise the standard suite of abilities. They would really like a piece of armor, possibly, just to keep them extra safe, but they could also cast like Skeletal Body and Barkskin to help themselves out, or maybe even Invulnerability later on. Very, very nice, very important for us. They can cast all of our native spells, and you're definitely going to want them because of some of the special spells we can get. So you'll never have enough Carrion Lords. Also, remember, they can reanimate based on their priest level. So again, we'll never have enough of these guys. We would love more of them. Moving up to our regular commanders, we get the Black Harpy, which can be recruited in all forests. Arguably the best scout in the entire game. We can recruit them not only in our forts, but also the forests. They're 35 gold, 1 and 1 resource and recruitment. They are flying, good stealth. They have forest survival and recuperation. These make scouting the world out year 1 very easy, especially if you can get some early forests, which we are strongly incentivized to do. Next, we have a Satyr Commander. Probably not going to see a lot of use here. 60 gold, 5 resources, 1 recruitment point. Does have 50 leadership. However, no undead, no magic leadership. He is stealthy, has forest survival, recuperation, or junky gear. Minotaur Lord can also be recruited in all forests. That helps him out at least a little bit. He has the standard Minotaur stats. Otherwise, not much to say here. I don't think I would be getting these. Maybe a very light thug with like a midget masher and a piece of armor. Maybe in the right circumstances. Or a great sword of sharpness if I need to try to hack apart a monolith or something. Maybe. Next up, we have the Centaur Hierophant. Can also be recruited in all forests. Do note you would need a lab and a temple to do that. These guys come in with inspirational. They have 50 normal leadership, 0 magic, 10 undead leadership. I tend to have these guys help move around a few troops in the early game or ferry my sacreds around. For our random, we can get a death or a nature at 100% and a very small chance to get an earth. Overall, they are okay at research. They have 7 research for 68 gold per year. Natively, you're probably taking magic skills though, so that's going to be a little bit higher. We also have Centauride Hierophantide, if I'm saying that 5 times fast. Very, very similar stats. I will note he has a longbow, which is more useful than her short bow. She also has different pathing in that her 10% is water instead of earth. Otherwise, the same with death and nature. For research, she is 68 for 7, just like he is. Overall, I prefer to get the male ones for the longbow. If you get nature, you can give yourself eagle eyes and pretty accurately plink away at something. Remember, you can fire rear, so that would give us 17 precision on a longbow. We could craft ourselves like some vine bows or something. Could be interesting on the right circumstances, I suppose. Next up, we have a Black Dryad. This is a Death 1, Nature 1, Glamour 1, Priest Level 2, Sacred, 11 Research for 86 gold per year. So not bad, still efficient, and a little quicker than the cheaper ones. Otherwise, same basic stats. We do have some spells that require Death 1, Nature 1, so they can do that natively. Also lets us get a cheap Glamour search out that's guaranteed. I end up getting some of these. We have, again, some holy spells that we're going to want to cast, and Priest Level 2 can cast them. So, pretty good little mage, despite normally this would be kind of meh. Next, we have a Dryad Hag. 370 gold is getting pretty pricey. We look at these previous ones, 215, 170, 170. So, this is getting pricey. We could get 2 or 3 of those other guys for one of these, but Death 1, Nature 2, Glamour, Priest Level 2, and a random of Water, Earth, Death, or Glamour. So we could actually get a Glamour 2, or a Nature 3, or a Death 2 out of this. That's pretty interesting, especially the Glamour 2, I think. Otherwise, not too much to say here. I think the cheaper one with the Black Dryad is better than the Dryad Hag. If I was getting these, it would really probably be to fish for either the Water or the Glamour 2. or maybe the earth. So if you're looking for a little more variety, this is the way to go, but dang, those are expensive. Those are really expensive. Remember, we're going to want to be spamming temples, so money's going to be at quite the premium in the early game, and late game, our pop kill will take out most of our income. So I find these a little hard to get. Finally, we have the Panic Apostate. The Panic Apostate requires 420 gold, 1 resource, and 4 recruitment points. Do note, not cap only. That's interesting. Does require a fort with a lab to be able to recruit them, but you get a Death 2, Nature 3 with a random of Water, Earth, Death, or Nature. So we can natively get Death 3, Nature 4 on this guy, aka we could give him a Skull Staff to get to Death 4, or a Vine Mace, or excuse me, a Thistle Mace to get to Nature 5. Both of those are important breakpoints for summons or ritual spells. That's very, very handy. He's 360 or 336 gold per year. Very expensive upkeep. This is a prime candidate for using Twiceborn on, and if he dies, he comes back as cheaper and probably better. I did not test this. I didn't have it happen, but I've heard they come back as Carrion Lords. If that's the case, Carrion Lords are just a straight upgrade to this. Note 2, 3, and not sacred, whereas the Carrion Lord here, 2, 3, and holy level 3 sacreds. Very big upgrade if that's the case. If you can confirm that, please put that in the comment below. Otherwise, can cast our Summon Bramblefort spell, can summon in Carrion Lords. When you get your first one of these is very important because he will summon in your first Carrion Lord / your first fort. So you're going to want this, but it's going to be hard to get because you're probably recruiting in Black Centaurs, which are pretty pricey themselves. So the timing on your first Panic Apostate is pretty important. Otherwise, he does have Beastmaster +1 if you have any living beasts, and has a good supply bonus if you're leading around living troops later on. Pretty nice little unit overall. Who would I make my prophet? You actually start the game with a Carrion Centaur. I would probably make him my first prophet if I needed one instantly, or I would try to wait and make a Carrion Lord my prophet. You could probably get a Carrion Lord out after 6 or 7 turns, probably. But yes, that sucks. Having a Holy 4 allows us to do battlefield-wide regeneration on our Carrion units. That is so huge. And we don't really have an easy way to get anyone else up to Holy level 4, except for Prophet. So I think it's totally worthwhile to go that route. If you weren't going to do those two, I would probably make it, I don't even know. I don't like these. I guess a Satyr Commander. At least he's stealthy, I suppose. Maybe a Harpy. Do some stealth preaching. Note, we don't get our free spawn unless we have Dominion there. And our free spawn are dependent on the number of corpses. So you can see here, no corpses, 14 corpses. Where have I been fighting recently? Down here. 40 corpses, but not in my Dominion. So we have no free spawn, despite us having a pretty big battle there. We check over at Man. Lots of free spawn because we have lots of corpses. So getting your Dominion out is important. Quite important. So I don't know. It's rough delaying that profit and not getting them out right away. National items and spells. For national items, we actually have 2 national items. At Construction 5 for both, we have the Carrion Bow. This is similar to a Vine Bow, but also does the Carrion Seed special effect. Remember, that will disease somebody, and it will bring them back as a Carrion when they die from it. Pretty interesting. A little on the pricey side here, though. If you could get a Dwarven Hammer, this would be very cheap. So maybe your Pretender could do that, or maybe you could trade for one if you're playing multiplayer. Otherwise, I'm not sure about that cost. Our second item is the Carrion Seed. Do note here, cannot forge this item. This only comes from getting hit by things which give it to you. We have a spell that does it, and then some of our bow attacks can do it. Essentially, this is what it's going to do to you. Item cannot be removed. It gives you a disease. It is Upon death, the seed will sprout and reanimate the dead as a mannequin, alive again, but bereft of their old identity. So you can actually get units from the enemy if they die with this, although oftentimes they would just get killed by the enemy, I believe. So a little moot point there. Other items of interest, especially, is the Thistle Mace. Quite important there. I think we'd be very interested in either an Ice Shield or a Vine Shield for our Thuggy type units. Very easy for us to do. We have good nature income, and while we're easily able to spend that, for a few units, I think getting a Homunculus for some research bonus would help. I really struggled to get research because all of our mages are so useful in combat or building or preaching or getting temples up or joining the fight. I really struggled to get my research going, and a Homunculus would give us a nice big bump up in our research speed. Cornucopia, of course, for nature gems in combat could be good. Dropping a few swarms is always a nice thing to do. We don't really care about the cure-all because we're already undead on our most important units, or we want to be undead. Beyond that, Effigy of War is kind of interesting. We have the paths to create it. It makes your army look bigger than it actually is. That could be really nice against humans because you can kind of play the information war with them there. Other things of note, Twisting Armor, or Armor of Twisting Thorns would be really good. We don't natively have blood, but if you had that on your Bless, which there are a lot of blood blesses we would like, this is an easy way to get yourself an extra nature path. Could be pretty good for our thugs. Spirit Mask also gives you the spell Frighten. Again, another one we can pretty easily cast, although, again, using up gems that we have other uses for. Does allow you to cast the spell Frighten. For your commanders who have nothing else to do, putting one of these on them could be kind of interesting to me. They don't have a helmet, so it's like a carrying commander type unit is where I would think about this possibly. And at least he can just spam Frighten. Give him something to do there. For magic spells, we actually have quite a decent amount of magic spells. Starting us off in Alteration, at level 0, so we start with this, we have Carrion Fortress. 3 nature, 2 death to cast. Note that we start with that natively, guaranteed natively. Can only be cast in forests and shallow seas, and because it's a ritual, it will require a lab. For 45 gems, you get a fortress. This is the Bramble Fort that you summon in. 25 admin, a commander point bonus. A little bit of recruitment point bonus. Note, though, 300 wall integrity is absolutely nothing. There are citadels in this age that have over 1,000. So that is absolute garbage. And the defenders are not particularly great either. If we compare that, though, this is the Built Palisades. This is 1,500 gold. 15 admin, no commander bonus, no recruitment bonus, worse walls. 1,500 gold for this. Garbage. Compared to this, we actually get a commander point bonus. And the admin, I think, is that even higher? And the admin's higher. So you're even going to get more money out of this. So you really want to summon in Bramble Forts. I accidentally built this one. I guess it's a good thing because it at least allows me to show it off. Even our starting one is a Bramble Fort. So without that, if I go to recruit here, we only have 1 commander point. So our non-slow to recruit mages are going to be slow to recruit. Do note that. Moving on to other spells that we have, let's take a look at enchantment. In enchantment, we have a bunch at level 0, but we also have one at level 4. At level 0, we can summon in our Carrion Centaur, our Carrion Lady, and our Carrion Lord. 8, 16, and 35 respectively. Carrion Lady ends up in a really weird spot. I would get her if I wanted somebody to summon in some more undead for me, because they're going to come in at priest level 2. They're the budget option. You could have 2 of these for the price of 1 Carrion Lord. Beyond that, I'm not really sold on them. Carrion Centaurs, I'm interested in for some light thugging. They get also pretty good leaders for us. Carrion Lords are absolutely amazing units. So, I don't know. She's in a weird spot. We also have special priest spells. We have Quick Roots, Air Effect 1+. It gives you combat speed. Note this is not the quick spell, but it makes you faster. That's handy. We have regrowth at 2. This is area effect 2+, and it essentially gives you regen to units that you hit it with. So you would really like to spam this out. It's very, very helpful, especially on some of our better Carrion units. We have Mend the Dead. This is a targeted heal spell. For our really big units, we can heal them just 40 straight up. And remember, everything we have has recuperation, so these actually can help you keep your best stuff alive, although you're at the whims of AI targeting. At 3, we have Puppet Mastery. This is a battlefield-wide speed up. This is the same as the level 1 spell. It is magic resistance negates, so you might need to spam this a few times to make sure that you actually hit everybody with it. Totally worthwhile, though. And at 4, we have Carrion Growth. This allows you to get the regen on your entire battlefield. Very, very powerful. We would really, really like to do this. At 4, we have Dark Slumber. Dark Slumber requires 15 nature gems. This is a remote spell. It will kill some people in a forest and have them attack as mannequins. So probably not worth 15 gems, I would say, but who knows? Maybe in the right circumstances, that could be useful. Finally, in Conjuration, at 3, we have Sleep Vines. Sleep Vines require a nature and a glamour, so this is our Dryad units. This gives you a very strong Tangle Vine. It's only range 20, it's area effect 2, and it's pretty accurate. It hits them with entanglement, but also hits them with fatigue damage. It is magic resistance negates, but getting whomped with 33 fatigue damage is very brutal. It'll also make it harder for them as their fatigue goes up, their strength will go down a little bit. Harder to break free. It's a strength plus DRN, which is 2d6, versus 19, but that's modified by our growth death scales, and if it's in a forest or a wasteland. So in growth 5 in a forest, this is a 25 to break free. That is incredibly difficult for a human. You'd have to roll, let's see, 2 6s would take us to 22, and then we'd have to roll average on those 2 to get there. So that's a very hard roll to make. That's a very hard roll to make. We also have Vengeful Vines at 4. Again, this is a nature death combat spell. Range is still only 20. Area of effect is 1. Precision 2 again, pretty cheap on fatigue cost. It also gives you entanglement. Instead of fatigue though, this one does armor negating magic poison damage. Very nice. So your 25 protection heavy cav, well, I just hit them with poison that goes straight through their armor. Very, very nice there. Note, this doesn't have to deal damage for that to proc. You just have to hit them with it, and then that will proc. And it is 10 plus, so damage is increased by 2 for every extra level. That's going to be on your nature. So our nature 3s or 4s are going to be hitting really, really hard. So if this was a nature, let's say 3, that'd be 14 damage, and you still get your DRN on top of that. Also, it gives you a Carrion Seed. So this will allow you to get out on enemy commanders. So even if you don't kill them with this, they're doomed with disease at that point. And they have an item that continuously diseases them, and they can't get rid of it. So pretty darn nice there. Beyond those, I think we are looking at a lot of the regular nature and death stuff you would want to do. We have a really good dump for nature gems. So beyond Swarm, I'm probably not that interested in most nature summons. We do have a tiny amount of access to Glamour, although not good enough for the good stuff. I will note that we could get high enough for summon Fey Folk. We can get Glamour 2s. You need a Glamour 3 for the booster, which we don't natively get, so that's a little ouch. Fey Foot Folk is also reachable for us. What else would be interesting? Yeah, we probably... Phantasmal Knights, yeah, probably not too much else here. In Alteration, we're going to want the standard buffs, mainly the Eagle Eyes, the Bark Skin, or maybe for some of our guys, the Earth buffs. But those are the main 2. Beyond that, big nature things, big nature Bark Skin. We can get a little bit of Moss Body, possibly. Swarm is usable. Blood poisoning is a very underestimated spell. Range 30, one person, but it hits you for 15 plus poison damage. So this is a even harder hitting poison than our native spell. Going up to Evocation, Breath of the Dragon would be pretty nice. Remember, a lot of our Carrion are pretty poison immune, or at least they have a good resistance to it. So we don't have to worry too much about friendly fire there. Same thing with Poison Arrows. Or Storm of Thorns could be another one. I don't know if we're spending time casting these, though, but they're available at least. Miasma is an interesting one. This one allows you to target a swamp or a drip cave, and it does a bunch of poison. I don't know, that could be interesting. I've never cast it myself. I guess I should also, let's go back to Alteration. Note that under Death, we can do Soul Vortex. So we can do Soul Vortex Thugs if we are so inclined. And we can spam Disintegrate pretty easily. In construction, I think we are interested in some light thug gear. We're interested in some research or some boosters. So 3 or 5 is pretty interesting. Do note, we can cast Construct Mannequin, but I don't know. We get those as free spawn. Do I want to spend 7 gems for just 16 of those-ish? I don't think so. I'd have to be really desperate to cast that. Moving up to Enchantment. In Enchantment, there's a couple things that we would like. We can do Poison Arrows. I'm not too sold on that, frankly. What we're more interested in here, Personal Regen for our Panics, if we're using them, and they're not undead. Twiceborn. Panics can twiceborn themselves, and when they die, you'll get a guy back that's going to be free. And like I said, I can't confirm that he goes back as a Carrion Lord, but either way, you're going to have a good mage that's now undead, so you can do your undead shenanigans. We're probably not that interested in doing skeleton stuff because we already have tons and tons of those. But Pale Riders could be vaguely interesting for us. We have a little bit of death income, but not much. This could be a decent way to spend it, just to get some more flankers. Rigor Mortis. We can get Death 4s with a bit of work and luck. We can get Death 3 and then Skull Staff him. Rigor Mortis is not going to affect our undead, and just even more fatigue play that we can stack on top of the Sleep Vines. Very, very powerful. Past that, not really in love with any of these other ones. Going up to Thaumaturgy. Thaumaturgy gives us access to Terror, which is a very nice, large, relatively easy to cast fear effect. Very, very powerful still. Leeching Darkness. This one gives you a cloud that takes HP from things that are in it. I don't even think this requires a magic save. I'm pretty sure if you get hit with this, you just lose HP. It does go back to the caster. That's kind of whatever, unless you're doing this on a thug. But our own guys are going to be undead and will not have this hit them. It also permanently weakens warriors. So a nice little screw you spell that you can get out. We can do Leprosy as a remote. Again, relatively hard for us to do, though. Yeah, I think that's it. Maybe you could set yourself up for some of these bigger ones, but I think we're moving into the realm of needing a pretender for those. Blood Magic, the only thing I have to say about that is Armor of Twisting Thorns would be really nice for us, and Blood Fecundity would be quite nice for us. If you don't take Nature 4, I think you really want to consider doing some blood so you can Blood Fecundity. Remember, you need to have Growth 4 or 5. 4 does everywhere except for farmlands, and 5 does farmlands to turn into a forest. We are very incentivized to have forests. Forest will give us better free spawn after all the pop is dead than non-forest will, and we're really, really going to want to do that. In addition, our forts can save 1,000 population from our pop kill, and our forts are only good if we summon them as bramble forts, which require a forest to do. So that would be an argument maybe for doing that. Beyond that, we do have access to death. So if we did want to go for Curse of Blood, we could get a Death 4 guy and then do some empowering. We'd have to empower. We could probably empower twice, and then I think we could get the last booster with Twisting Thorns. But that gives us the Vampire Lords, and then we could go down that route. Do note, we are a strong pop kill, though, so it's going to be very hard to have enough blood hunting to really get a blood economy going. I don't think that's very viable beyond just maybe some blood fecundity nice and early. Okay, that's a lot to be said about this. Let's bring it all together. We're a nation that has a really strong sacred with black centaurs and really good non-cap restricted mages in the panic apostates. We are very strongly incentivized to go after forests or to make a forest. This is my only one that's changed so far. This was my turn 1 candle. Nothing else has come out here in this game yet. I'm only on turn 30 though, so in a few more turns I should see some more forests popping up. As you can see here, these are all the free spawn, and most of them are crappy mannequins, and we have one Magladorgora here. The better stuff is coming out of forests. So if we see here, there's harpies, we have some boars, Magladorgoras are Sagittarians. This is much better. Now, this does have a temple and lab. I don't believe the lab affects anything. I just built that recently to put this fort up when it turned into a forest. This guy has been here a long time. Here's what's spawning into it. Again, you can see I've got growth 5 at the moment because I have a growth throne in this game. How lucky. And I went with magic 3. And this is probably 2 turns of what has spawned. So we have some junkers, we have 1 horse, we have 2 sacreds, we have a behemoth, we have 1 mandragora, 1 harpy, and 1 wolf. So pretty interesting. Do note, pops down to 6k. It has died off quite a lot. 2k, 2k. Look how much pop kill I've done. We're only 20 turns in. So pop is going to go bye-bye very, very, very quickly. And my income shows that. I have already taken out man. Well, no, he's not dead. He has some stuff down here. But I've taken man's home territory, and I've taken some of Asphodel's territory. I carrioned in here as they were losing to these guys. So you can see money's going to be a problem for you. Luckily, 300 gold isn't that bad for a temple, and temples do give us nature gems. So I have plus 19 nature gems. Do note that does include man's capital here. But very, very strong, I would say, on that. We're going to be looking at summoning lots of Carrion Lords. Here's one right here. And using those to great ends for buffing, for summoning, etc., etc. This army here is pretty darn strong. You see, here's my surviving black centaurs that I've recruited. I have a little bit of archer support. I lost quite a few of them recently. And they've been doing pretty good. We've been pretty much barreling through everything that we've run across. Having a combination of mindless chaff and berserking killers makes your expansion relatively safe. Relatively. At least for Babel. And yeah, it went all right. I'd say the hardest part of the game is getting the ball rolling. It's hard getting out and getting your expansion going. It does take a little bit of finesse, whether you're going to use black centaurs, centaur warriors. The satyrs aren't worth it, frankly. So those are probably your 2 options. Or an awake expander. I do think that this is a nation that could use an awake expander, and we'll look at some options for that. Beyond that, remember, you also have plenty of things who are poor amphibians. So I haven't done it yet, but you could totally get underwater. And junky underwater thrones are very killable. We'll just drown them in units until they go away. Maybe some fear, just spook them off the field is another viable option. Pretender design. For pretenders, Asphodel has a pretty good mix, actually. And surprisingly enough, a lot of viable chassis in here. We go down to the level 1s. I think the most interesting things down here, Great Enchantress with the Glamour Gems. Maybe we go Cold Asphodel. We do have Undead that don't mind the cold so much. And we could do Unsealing Knights. Could be an option there. She would allow us to do that. Note, we don't have native Glamour income. That gives us a little bit. We could do the Crone. Not too in love with that. She doesn't really bring anything special other than just being 90 points, which is pretty dang cheap. We have the Great Sage if we're going to go for more research. Possibility, but I'm not sure what we're doing with the Astral. We do have the Gray one. This is a Trinity. As a Trinity, you actually can do an awake researcher with just the three of them helping you with research. I think that could be interesting. Do note, 110 points though. A little pricey, and I think that the Great Sage would be a better research assist. Frostfather, if you're going to go cold, maybe that would be an option. I'm not sure what we're doing with his Bless though. Moving up to Dom 2, we have a couple special ones. We have the Carrion Dragon, only 160 points. I don't mind that. If you look at a normal dragon, normal dragons are 160. Or excuse me, 260. He's only 160. We also have the Draco Lich, although he's pretty pricey, and we want growth. So, Carrion Dragon, a lot of attacks, a lot of attacks. Note here that he does not have a breath attack. So you are going to be a combatant. So he's going to have to get in there and actually fight. You're probably going to want to get Mending Bones if you're going to take him. We'll look at a build for him. Also note, his scales don't matter because we're already getting that from our nation. We also have the Wormsoul, 220 points, but he's immortal. That could be interesting. Maybe if I was going to go this route, I would put him as like a imprisoned and have him come in with like a Winds of Death type guy. Obviously, that's a little expensive on the pathing, but could be interesting. Disease Explosion on Death. He explodes into a swarm body. If they don't kill all the bugs, then he comes back. Could be interesting. Could be interesting. Beyond that, I'm not too in love with most of these other chassis. I do have a Man-Eater build. I do have a Celestial Griffin build, actually, that we'll look at here in a minute. Do note, we really want growth. So taking things that give us death, I do not like. So any of these death guys that otherwise would have been interesting are off the palette for me because you need growth badly. Moving up to Dom 3s, again, we have a couple unique ones here. We have the Titan Mandragora and the Mother Mandragora. 270 and 250, little too expensive in my opinion. He is Power of Death, but we don't want death. So, yeah. This unit gets more powerful for each time it's been killed. Okay, I'm going to correct myself. I thought that was coming off of death power, but maybe if that, I guess that probably means he can have it 3 times. Yeah. The value of this ability is the maximum number of deaths that will result. So we have +6 strength, attack, defense. Yeah. I'm not seeing that. I guess you're going Soul Vortex if you go this guy. Maybe. We do have decent Holy 3s and Holy 2s, so we could summon him back when he dies. He does have growth power. Okay. Interesting. I don't think I would ever play him, but I can see a Soul Vortex build here. If we take a look at the Mother, same thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not too in love with either one of those. For Titans, I do think we have some interesting ones here. The Mother of Monsters. She has some pathing that we're interested in. We don't mind dumping Turmoil Scales completely. That'd be fine. She is Adept Crossbreather with Blood. That gives us just another avenue to get some more chaff in. She also summons in some random stuff in our Dominion. Has a Poison Cloud, which our undead stuff doesn't mind. Could be something here. She is a little on the pricey side at 240, though. I don't know. Great Archon. I like this guy a lot. We're going to look at a build for him. He brings in a lot of things that we would like, including fire resist availability. Could be something really nice. Alchemist also. If we can find some fire gems or some earth gems, we can make money with Alchemist. We'll double the amount. We're going to have money problems once all the pop dies. So that's one way to alleviate it. And he has a really high inspiring researcher with +2, which would help us out there. Yeah, he's interesting enough, I suppose. Other things of interest, I would say Titan of the Spring does have immortality, but beyond that, I'm not too in love with that. We do have the Titan of the Crossroads. That's another Trinity. We used one of these in the Middle Age Ermor stream. A lot of research. A lot of research on these. Pathing is interesting here, so you could make something out of that, I think. Do note our old reliable Demilich brings in death, which we do not want, so I think he's out. Moving up to Dom 4s, we have the Idol of Sorcery, and I really like the Idol of Sorcery here. We're going to look at a build for him. We have the Monolith. We have the Sacred Geyser. This is a very cheap chassis if you want to take acidic weapons or quickness. This guy can do it for you exceedingly cheap. Oops. Exceedingly cheap on that. And in fact, why don't we even just make one here quick? So we would need... This is our base scales, I would say, is something like this. And then to get ourselves up to quickness, we would need 9 water. We will take quickness. Still need 1 more point, so we'll do that. So only minus 62. We could go with a little bit of heat. And that leaves us with... That'd be fine. This is quickness for all of our things, including our black centaurs. Quickness is very powerful on them. This would be totally fine. He's awake. Fine scales. There's nothing wrong with this. We're going to pop kill anyways, so who cares on the temps? You could do that if you really, really hate it, but I don't care on this nation. That's pretty viable. If you wanted to knock quickness down and maybe you take like vitriolic weapons, that's also pretty dang cheap here. We could knock that back, let's say. In fact, we could knock this back quite a bit. What do you need? 6 water. That's just cheaper. And that allows us to bring that back down. Go with some extra. There you go. 7 black centaurs with vitriolic weapons. That could be fine. That could be fine. Beyond those, Statue of War. Again, with him, I think his big thing is just being able to get some fire resistance. Like double. Because we are an undead person, fire elementals are a big concern for us. Those sleep vines are going to absolutely murder your units. This will at least allow our sacreds to have some fire resistance. Beyond him, I also think the Fountain of Blood could be kind of interesting. We can dump an extra turmoil on him. For him, now we're looking at probably going maybe vampiric weapons. 8 and was that 4? This is still so overpriced. I really want to do a vampiric weapon. Maybe we'll end up doing it. Maybe we won't. Well, that's unfortunate. 19 points left. Oh, something like this though could be viable. Yeah, this is awake. I will note again. You could dormant him, and then that would allow us to bring back some of that bad scalage. There you go. That's an awful lot of black centaurs, and even without their vampiric weapons in the early game, I think they do pretty well for themselves. I think we will even save him. Mess store, welcome in. Okay, let's take a look at a couple I've made, and you can see here, I was having fun. First up, we have a Carrion Dragon. He has Reforming Flesh and Withering Weapons. Reforming Flesh will stack with our national spell. Him himself has 200 HP, and remember you get extra HP with candles. He can be an absolute beast in combat. He does have recuperation, and he'll need it because he doesn't have enough protection. So that is a little bit of a worry for him. Next we have Guamata. I didn't actually end up liking this guy that much. I had to take him dormant to get the scales that we need. I think this nation requires Growth 4 and Magic 3. So just remember that's your baseline. And he wasn't a good enough combatant. I didn't research correctly, though. He really needs to go up Alteration a little bit to give himself some more protection. And I think he would have done better than I had him do. But for vampiric weapons, I think the Blood Fountain is just better. You just have easier scales and higher dominion on that. Next up, we have Cloud Wrath. This is a really interesting one. I don't remember the name of the user, but somebody was talking about this on the Discord. This is in Awake, and all he needs is Personal Mistform. So you're probably going to do Air Shield, Personal Mistform, Attack Rear. And again, he has the scales that we need. This is perfectly fine. He even has a little bit of luck compared to the other guys. And he brings in Thunder Weapons. Thunder Weapons are interesting because on some of our Sacreds that have Sleep Vines, that's 3 attacks that are going to proc a Thunder attack, 1 armor negating damage, plus 3 armor negating fatigue, and you have that chance to stun. So you can spam the heck out of that. and really, really stun things to death, lightning damage things to death with our sacreds that have lots of attacks. And he himself has fear. So a flying fear, again, you're going to need personal misform. So you're going to have to, you're not turn 1 expanding. This is kind of like a Dave the Lion type thing. The other thing I find really interesting for him is he ended up needing 8 air, which is enough to get like Dark Skies or Wrathful Skies. Once we have our Dominion pushed out, and we're going to really be pushing that aggressively, having somebody have, let's say, -8 morale because of Dark Skies would be absolutely crippling, trying to fight into just swarms and swarms of undead that they have to grind their way through. So this guy kind of brings in an unexpected global possibility, although you're going to have to find those air gems to be able to cast it. But if you do, that could be quite interesting, actually. And I think this guy's could solo expand into the right thing. Again, you're definitely going to want Mistform before you try that. Maybe Charge Body also would not be a horrible plan. He'll probably cast it. Yeah, interesting here. Do note he's not a good researcher, so he's not going to help that much to get himself out and running. But I think this would be a very unexpected pick. Brings up some other air globals that you otherwise wouldn't have access to. Spam some air elementals. He can throw up Storm by himself. Being able to drop Storm just protects you from a lot of enemy archers. And if you're not going to play the archer game, why let the enemy do it? So, could be interesting there. Next up, we have Abraxas. This guy is the Archon. Fire resistance and some attack skill. His main thing is just being awake and doing that alchemy and the inspiring researcher thing. He also can teleport if we need to, and brings in just some variety here for stuff. Can make dwarven hammers also. Quite nice there. We have Himmler the Heckler. This is a very interesting one to me. This guy is set up that he can do project self. So he can project self into combats and throw out like some terror spells or spam hordes of skeletons or things like that with his project self. But he's also able to teleport. If he teleports in, then he could do things like rigor mortis for you. That would be quite surprising. For his bless, I also took death weapons and arcane finesse. Arcane finesse mainly because death weapons has a magic save, and that helps with that. We also do other things that have magic saves on them, and this will help with those. Very interesting. I kind of like the double threat of I can project self into suicide fights, but I also can teleport into major fights that really matter. He'll also allow you to gate troops around. That's high enough for that. And he has 400 undead leadership. He can move a lot of guys around for you. This would be an excellent guy to be able to port into a fort that's under siege. Remember, our forts are garbage. They have 300 wall integrity. They're breaking instantly. All right, well, break into my fort instantly, but during the magic phase, I'm going to come in there with 400 undead, and I'm going to throw up rigor mortis and spam fear at you, and hordes of skeletons for days. Very interesting in this guy. He's got Farcaster natively, which helps him a lot. He has Curse Bestower, that's kind of whatever. 20 protection isn't the worst. He's going to be able to do Body Ethereal on himself. He also could do Soul Vortex, and he has Ethereal. That's going to be a pain in the butt to chop through him. An absolute pain in the butt to chop through him. And the whole time, he's going to be trying to cast some spells at you. It could be pretty nasty. Could be pretty darn nasty. I'm super interested in this guy, and he comes in with decent scales. He is dormant, but that's fine. We can get out there and expand without that. Death weapons are very interesting on those vines yet again because we have just so darn many attacks that we can proc it so dang many times. So I'm kind of leaning towards this guy or Cloud Wrath. Weirdly enough, for this nation, I know they're not the classic like Carrion Dragon, which is cool, but this isn't the best bless, if I'm being honest with you there. So I do think there's lots of room for other things. I really wish that the vampiric weapons was better. I really do. But I think if you're taking this guy, you're mainly going to go for doing a bit of blood hunting and empowering somebody in blood to get armor of twisted thorns. So I don't know. We don't need a mobile god, so he is fine in that aspect because we do have holy threes. But I think this idol of sorcery and the dual threat of project self and teleport / gate. We also could do like burden of time on this guy. His death is actually high enough, or well of misery. Like we could do a big death thing with this guy that otherwise we're not really going to be able to do. So let me know which one of these you find interesting, or if you have a different bless / whatever. I think this is a nation that can do a whole bunch of different things, except you do have to take growth 4, magic 3 for sure. That's just required in my opinion. But beyond that, I think we have so many different sacreds that are really good sacreds that we can do lots of fun and interesting blesses there. In conclusion, Asphodel, very, very fun nation. It's not too odious of a free spawn nation. It's not too painful to go pick things up, just because we have so many carrion commanders spawn. In the game I showed you, I basically had so many of them. I just had one stationed in every single province. And when I felt like it, they would all just move into one and combine their troops and then go back to where they came from. So it wasn't actually that painful to move them around, like no more than doing like mass blood hunting or something. In addition, they can do lots of interesting big spells, which is always fun, and lots of viable, interesting gods, including some chassis that I never would normally pick, which is really interesting and fun to me. You know, we're not stuck in that rut of taking the same thing over and over again. They have some interesting economy things. Getting the temples produce nature gems is absolutely huge and allows us to do some things we otherwise wouldn't be able to do. All right, builders, that's going to be the end of Asphodel. If you found this one interesting, don't forget to leave a like on the video. If you're not a subscriber, I hope I've earned your subscription in this one. And if you'd like to go above and beyond to support the channel, you can always leave a super thanks. You could join us in stream and leave a super chat, or consider becoming a channel member. As a channel member, you get early access to videos such as this, usually about a week early, and other projects that I'm working on usually go up as members first before they are released to the public. Either way, any support is always appreciated from the builders. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Get out there and make yourself a haunted forest, and I'll see you guys on stream.